Hello, everyone, and welcome to This Week in Hospitality Marketing, show number 427 on this Friday, October 13th. I hope that you recognize this symbolism of this now. As a matter of fact, one of my dear friends, Aaron, is taking his family up now to Orlando, literally thinking that the adult haunted weekend Halloweens, I don't go to it, he does, will be more scarier because of it. So it is the fact that it is Friday the 13th. So all good luck to everyone that is involved. Um, Thank you for joining. I wanted to go over, and it's not so much an axe to grind as it is a cause to banner. I guess is the nicest way of saying this. Our topic today is a little feisty because it is more opinion from my side, which I think, without naming names or pointing fingers at people, it is a growing shared sentiment. And that is who's training the trainers, the new skill gap at the exec level. It's not so much as a complaint as it is a growing awareness that and these I'm not speaking of my clients. I just speak at conferences. I go to conferences. I speak at many things. I'm on TV here all the time talking about things, and I get a lot of feedback from people. And I'll say that most of the reason why I'm asking these questions of who trains the trainers and the skill gap that we are now, I think, we're legitimately looking at the higher levels of people that should already know this information but don't, is because of the types of questions I'm getting on our hospitality marketing club. People that are working every day in this industry for marketing for what we do, and there's these noticeable gaps. Now, the first book I ever wrote was Hospitality for the Non-Hospitality Marketers, and that was a guide to help people that do marketing but haven't grown up in the hospitality industry, how the industry actually works. And people have loved the book, enjoyed it. I've revised it twice since I first published it, and now I'm focusing on basically the people that do marketing for hospitality, better methodologies of marketing, the tools, the techniques, the journeyman level stuff, how to do this thing, not learn what PPC is, but what do you do about PPC? What do you do about, ad types and categorizations, creations and usabilities, analytics data and so forth, all the stuff we talk about and I get very excited about apparently. But I'm noticing a growing lack of base knowledge. Now, the marketers, they're in the mix. They're working with the tools. They're functioning with it. But the people that they rely upon in the decision model of an operation, property and or corporate and or ownership, there's growing gaps, a lack of understanding of what they're deciding on. And I know this from the history of histories for me, even when I was a GM, when I was working in department levels or whatever, when I got into the role where I had to explain something, especially doing this business. And I knew that the leadership that was in the room with me was not understanding what I was going to talk about, but they were in a difficult position. So I would often explain to one of their team members, I said, and I would look to them and say, I'm sure you guys already know this, but for all concerned, let's go through the basics first. Knowing I was really talking to them so that they understood more about what we were about to talk in more depth about. That was my little play of doing this. I could tell by the look in their eyes, the way they kept looking for approval from one of their team members that may know more about it, so forth and so on. And so that was understandable because we're going through and still go through lots of transitions of how things used to be done to how they need to be done. And that changes to something that next needs to be done. We're going through all these transitions of technology, AI's impact, its values, its usage, all the things that go on. Those frontline stuff will always get that know or don't know criteria. It's not a hotel general manager's daily routine to keep up on unless he's curious or she's curious about AI. What our role is, my role is when I bring conversations about solutions and programs and they ask questions about AI, is to be able to describe it and frame it in a way that's understandable. And that sometimes requires going to a base level of explanations before getting to the answer that they're looking for. What I'm noticing, however, it's not that. It's not the new stuff. It's the stuff that they should already know. Now, I don't know from when we had lockdown and we lost so many talented people from our industry, we had that bleed off of people that had to find other jobs and careers, and the usability of the hospitality skill set was so applicable in so many other industries that what we refilled it with was people that missed all of the education that brought them to the level that they were brought in as. I talk about directors of marketing, directors of sales and marketing, general managers, revenue specialists, revenue managers, corporate people, that they have a title and a role, but they have dark spots in their knowledge. And I'm not just talking about hospitality as an industry. They have dark spots in there too. It's also about the modalities of doing the work that they are responsible for. I have found myself more now than ever interrupting dialogue in front of C-level or exec committee people and saying, guys, I don't feel, I'm the one that goes into the uncomfortable zone. I don't feel that everyone here understands what we're talking about. And I'm sorry if you've take offense to this statement, but I think we need to simplify our dialogue so that we have a basic understanding. Because here's the paradox that a lot of senior level people are in. Back when they were skilled, and I was trying to talk to an underling in front of a superior so that they would understand what we're talking about without embarrassing them, you reach a certain level of authority that it is implied on your role that you are knowledgeable about stuff that maybe you're not knowledgeable truly about. You may be familiar with terminology, you may be familiar with modalities, but you don't actually functionally know how those things work. But now you're in a role of responsibility that perhaps you should, or worse yet, you're in a role of responsibility of a decision that controls those things, but you don't understand those things enough to make a good decision. But now you're in a very uncomfortable role because now you have to ask the uncomfortable question that might expose your naivety by going, guys, I don't understand. What is PPC again? And what happens is a lot of people go, boss doesn't know what PPC is, and they want to avoid that. So instead, they don't ask the question. They'll just let the conversation continue on, and they'll do the typical, oh, yes, because they don't want you to know. One of the strongest assets that I think I bring to many of my relationships over the years is I try to break through that wall going, please, no question is dumb. I'm not here to snicker at your lack of knowledge. I'm not here to condemn you for a missing piece of awareness. I'm here to answer your questions. Better to ask me so that you can go empowered into the next conversation. As a matter of fact, I took it as a mantle of responsibility on my side, even when I was working for people in hospitality. I said, everything I know about anything that's going on, I tell you, because my reliance on you as my superior is to make decisions. And you can't make good decisions unless you know everything that I know that's going on. So you make the best balanced decision there is. It didn't defy confidences. It just entrusted the fact that anything that was used for business needed to be understood by the people making decisions for that business. So I take that same mantle on with my relationships over the years with all of my clients. It's like, hey, I'll stop them. Do you understand what I'm talking about? Yeah, really? Feed it back to me then. Tell me what that is. Well, maybe I don't quite understand as well as I should. Please don't tell me you do, then not tell me you do. So stop me. And now I have relationships over the years of people going, Loren, dude, no clue. You lost me. Go back, especially since I talk fast. I get very passionate about it. And I can sometimes blow by what would be, I think, knowledge that they should have, but they don't. That's not my real gripe today. My real gripe today is that gap of knowledge is getting profoundly wider and deeper with people that are in high-level roles that won't even acknowledge they don't know something, that won't actually break the fourth wall, so to speak, and ask about things that they don't know enough about to make sure that their responsibility and their role is to the optimum of what they can do. They just figure, you know what? I don't know it. Maybe they don't even acknowledge they don't know it. I'll make a decision on what I do know. And that is painful to watch the errors that come from that. It is agonizing, big word, of things that happen that you just smack your head and go, really? Really? That was your choice? What did you base that on? And I noticed that a lot of mutual bluffing goes on. I don't know what we're talking about, and you don't know what we're talking about. But if I sound like I know what I'm talking about, and you sound like we know what we're talking about, we'll come to an agreement about what we don't know about, but we seem like we know what we're talking about. I've seen that happen too. If you don't follow that conversation, it's okay. It's a rough one. Basically, you have a senior level person with a mutually senior peer level person talking about a decision that's not fully fleshed out in their understanding, but neither want to concede politically, that's deadly in those levels, that they are not fully understanding what they're making a decision on. And so they'll both bluff each other into thinking that they both know what they're talking about when neither do, on a decision that both of them think they're going to blame the other person on later if it fails. Well, I relied on the fact that they said that this was what they thought they'd be doing. Well, you said that you knew what was going. That happens all the time too, because there is this part that most staff and team and support team members don't understand is that you go up in the ranks and files of responsibility and supervisors and managers and directors and so forth. You have to maintain your authority credits. Basically, you have a plus and minus bank account in the world of how it goes. You win conversations and you lose conversations. You said you were going to do, something was going to happen and it didn't. You lost a little bit. You said something was going to happen and it succeeded. You gain a little bit. So there's this political scorecard that goes on in these meetings when they go into the meeting rooms. I remember very famously going into meeting rooms with my co-working friends, but as soon as we walked in that room in front of our ownership or our managers, it was sharks in a pool, man. If anybody got cut, they were the victim. And then we walk out and be friends again, because that's the nature of the beast. And so I often, you've heard me on the show complain or make a statement, I shouldn't say complain, but make a statement that most management decisions are based on what I call deniable culpability. Close enough to share the glory, far enough away from the blast if it fails. And that distancing, that filter of, can I be blamed for it? Can I be accredited for it if it succeeds? And how different those two lines are is the decision filter that goes through everyone's mind first that is not an owner. Because an owner, their mission is clear. It's my money, it's my product, my asset. I don't want BS. I don't want fuzziness. I want clarity. Is this or is this not a good decision? Is this being done right or wrong? There's a very clear vision from ownership because their value proposition to the whole program is very clear. Their asset is on the line, to be punny. Anybody else that's on payroll, not the case. Their reputation is on the line. How often am I right versus how often am I wrong? How am I compared to people that are my peers compared to the people that I supervise? How well do I supervise based on others? That comparison, that political conversations, the win and lose columns and so forth is all on everybody that's on payroll. Ownership has no scorecard for themselves. Now, there are multiple ownerships and some people are good at it and some people aren't, but that's a whole nother tangent. So with the first filter of any decision being whether I'm going to be stuck if it's wrong, holding the bag of poop when the music stops, or I'm going to be the one given the medal and the awards and the Star Wars closing credits music is playing in the background. And that is the first filter that comes to this. So this lack of knowledge, this gap point of what people are willing to admit that they don't know or take the time to research, but that's the problem too. We have, because we're still not fully back to a level of staffing. And make no mistake, it's not just because people aren't applying. There are sometimes, many cases, plenty of people applying. What's happened is ownerships, being clear in their mission, look at it that, well, we've gotten away with less, so why do we need to spend more? That's a very real, logical discussion in owners' minds. Is why, little Loren over there has been doing 3 people's jobs well. And it's cheaper for me to pay his maybe larger than normal for one job salary, but certainly lesser than the 2 or 3 that he's doing, than it is to actually hire the second or third person to dilute what he's doing and have a product level that goes up, because nobody is willing or capable of showing any sort of validation as to why that's a better move for them to actually fill the roles so that their quality of what can be produced goes up compared to the savings of cost by not doing it. It is the bane of most businesses. They can't cost themselves into profitability. God knows they try. Well, we just keep cutting costs. Somewhere along the line, we'll make a profit. No, Because if you're not investing in the top line revenue growth, all you're doing is deciding how to cut the same single apple between too many people. It's still just one apple. Why not go get a second apple? That's a whole logic string to that. So these people are overtaxed. They're working too much, doing too much. So this self-education process doesn't really happen. They don't have the time, because by the time they have time that is not allocated for, the last thing they probably want to do is spend more time on what they were working too much time on. So they don't. And here's another sad part. One of the first and persistent line items that gets ripped out of any budget for affordability: training and investment in team. One of the first ones. Why pay for ancillary services for training? Why pay for the time? Because it's, please understand from everybody that's saying, well, that seems silly. It's like, yes, it is silly. But when it comes to doing training, there's more to the cost than just the cost of a training program. Say you hire a third-party company to come in and train your sales team or whatever. There's the cost of that. And there's also the cost of taking the person out of the role that they are in and having to adjust for other people to compensate for that person being out of the system. And it's also paying that person to go through the training system. And the logic of how ownerships and management have devised this is that if you invest so heavily in an apathetic team member, because they basically feel that if they train them up too much, they're going to go ask for more money already. And what's worse is you might have just trained them up and made all that expense happen for them to go to your competitor, and the competitor gets the benefit of all the training you invested in them. So what's their answer? Let's not do it. Let's not necessarily keep them unskilled, but let's not give them too much that they want too much for it. Absolutely the antithesis of the success of what that is. If you invest in your team and if you invest in their training and their skills so that they can do a better job, and you give them the resources and compensation and rewards and acknowledgement that comes along with it, they won't be looking at your competitors. And you should be paying them more because they have become more valuable. So few companies understand that ratio. So few companies understand the value proposition of it. That's where we've created more gaps, because it's not that we couldn't train people. It's an actual choice not to train people. And we're saying, well, hey guys, if you want to succeed, then you're going to have to learn this stuff. But they don't give them the resources to do it. And if you ever looked at, if you say you work for brand hotels, if you try to look at the brand resources, it's cluttered and very self-serving. It's about training people to be better at the brand, not at being a hotelier or hospitality professional. Now, I say that with a grain of salt. It's more about being better working for the brand. And so much so that so many CVs and resumes get fed about the information of what a person has done for their training within a brand. It's a calling card of selling off their skills to a competitor, which is why you don't hear a lot of hotel ownerships and brands touting the training programs that are available in the brand so that you can achieve success with us, because they're worried that success will leave their house and go to another one. So if you discover it and you have the self-initiative on your own time, which means they don't have to pay, then you figure that, well, they're not doing this for me. They're not paying me to do it. I've gotten a lot better at my job with this brand. There must be a brand hotel somewhere that will probably compensate me for my improved skill set. Off they go. But so much is being missed on being good hoteliers, being good restaurateurs, being good team members in hospitality. And I'm not saying, there is, of course, some brand training that does come along that talks in generalities about hospitality, but it's more focused on how you operate in their systems, what systems they have available, what's your classification of understanding of all these systems. That's really the training the brand offers. If you go to independent hotels, you'll find there's a huge cliff that comes off of properties that don't teach you how to be better at your job. Now, there are hotels that are bucking that trend. There are organizations that buck that trend, but not many. They're the exception, not the rule. Mostly what you find with independent hotels or organizations that aren't affiliated so strongly with a particular brand is that you'll get a lot of the brand, the property's culture. You'll talk more about what it means to be a part of the organization. Not so much that they're going to invest hundreds, if not thousands of dollars into your revenue management training skills or your marketing training skills. They will train you better on their PMS system, their POS system, their programs, and their initiatives. And that's good for them that you become much more fluent in their system because it becomes more familiar to you. You feel more part of it if it's rewarded in kind. Is there an incentive relationship for your accumulation of knowledge? This is again where most hotels and hospitality operations fall down. They don't reward the initiatives for expanded learning. They don't reward the initiatives for being better at your job. Now, some of you in brand hotels at certain levels may go, wait, hold on. Now we offer continued education. Why? If you go to brand M or brand H or brand I, we have other college enrollment stuff you can do. You can learn all these classes. Great. How does that translate to this? I voraciously ate up any free education on branded hotels whenever I had the opportunity to work with branded. And most of it was general stuff. Nothing I could walk into my supervisor and say, hey, I just went through every offered college curriculum course, non-credited, okay? But all these college courses about a whole mess of this stuff. Look at the list. I'd like to get a raise. For what? Well, I took the initiative to become better. Better at what? Well, this is the information you gave me access to. Okay. Well, you got it and you enjoyed it. Good. Hopefully it'll improve more things that you're doing, but they're intangibles. They're not viably directed towards a skill for a certain thing. That's why most branded training is related to being better at a PMS or POS or the operating system within the brands. That's rewardable. But they're not going to pay you for it. They don't pay. Now, again, there's always exceptions. There are ownership groups that will go over and allow their teams to be paid to go through the training, but they have to reach certain goals to get rewarded. If they don't pass at certain levels or pass at all, then they're not paid for what they're doing. Or there's a risk that they were squandered time. They got paid to go through the training, but they didn't even pass the courses. So it was just a wasted expense of putting them through training because you didn't give them a carrot at the end of the stick. You didn't tell them the reward for going through that process. You only told them they had to go through the process. These are the gap points that I'm talking about when it comes to the knowledge base of where people are now in those roles. Because some of those people that we're talking about 3.5 years ago, soon to be 4 years ago, next March will be 4 years ago when we had full lockdown, those people were in the introductory training programs. They were the ones that were coming up to learn the ropes and learn how to do things. And then they got thrown into higher level roles because those roles were expensive and they were vacated. I'm going to take a lower person that has the aptitude or at least the exposure to what the role that is above them is, and I'm going to give it to them at a lower salary than the person I just let go because I couldn't, because of the economic circumstances, keep that person. The purge that we had with the lockdown. And so now they're paying a lesser person lesser money, which is more affordable financially, to run that role. Well, that person now, 3.5 years ago, if they stuck with it, is moved up past that role into higher roles. But that whole needed knowledge that they should have gotten normally is not there. And I say this out of angst because I deal with people that I'm explaining things to that should already know what I'm talking about without having it being explained. They need to know their channels. They need to know certain numbers in their channels. What is your repeat guest ratio? What is your channel contributions and percentages and costs for those marketings and so forth? Revenue. What is your optimum room types? What is the frequency of room conversions? What is your deep cleaning schedules? What are your per room cost related to maintenance? What is your cycle of maintenance? What is your FF&E capital expense rotations? Blank stares. And this is fundamental hospitality stuff. This isn't crazy front edge stuff, AI stuff, things that are just on the leading edge of yet to be understood stuff. This is stuff that is daily function stuff. I have dealt with many revenue managers, many marketing managers that don't have the basic understanding of all of the things that they're responsible for, or the modalities of how to function with the things that they're responsible for. And they have people that are working with them that are looking for decisions from them, and they're making their decisions based on ill-informed, shortly informed, non-informed things. These are the processes that are of concern. That's what I'm referring to when I talk about the idea that who's training the trainer. The skill gaps that are there that exist right now are, self-induced, and they're being propagated because we have still our antiquated infrastructure of cost savings and cost ratios versus value propositions. We have decisions from ownerships and exec teams of investment value ratios of why should I invest in this when that only it accelerates their departure. Without doing the real math. This is one of those scary things. They base it on round number. Well, that's about this. Well, where'd you come up with the number? Well, I'm just thinking, so you're making these numbers up, yet you're making decisions that affect people's lives from making these numbers up. That is the reality that I call the print "The King Has No Clothes On" regularly. I make people feel uncomfortable by doing this, or I tell them, you're basing it on a non-existent number. Someone told you that number, you guessed that number long ago, and you've used it enough that it has become fact. The old adage, if you tell a lie long enough, it becomes a truth. That's what these sound like. And I actually have taken real data from them. I've asked them questions that I've had the answer to. I looked at their data and I asked them questions of, well, what is your repeat guess percentage? About 20%. Really? No. Here's your number. And it goes back this far. And if you want to go back this far, we go back that far. Just go look at the data. I ask them about conversion ratios. And I guess granted, not everything's in the front of mind because maybe they aren't the people that usually use, but I only ask these questions usually of people that do and should use this numbers. And very rarely do they actually know the real number. Very rarely do they have it based on actual data or firsthand knowledge. Usually it's a hearsay. Usually it's an inference. Usually it's implied. I'll have to get back with you. It's not in front of me right now. These things sound familiar to you in answers. I love those statements. Well, it's not in front of me right now. Well, hop on up. I'll wait. Go get it. I have actually been bold enough that I've logged into their systems and flipped the laptop around and go find it. I did that a lot of times with people. It's like, oh, I log in daily on that. Really? Okay. Go and log in now. Oh, my password must have changed. Really? Because they only change them every 30 days. So it wasn't that you just did this. You haven't done this. You haven't logged into this system forever. And I lost also the platforms where I have a login record. Well, I was just looking at the other day. Really? Because you haven't logged into this for over 5 months. So I don't know, unless you're using somebody else's login, which would also be bad. I'd say no. So again, I'm the thorn, if you haven't noticed, in those conversations where the reality of making stuff up because you don't know it, or blindly ignoring things and making decisions on what you don't know also, and not taking the initiatives, or better yet, commanding and demanding the people above you invest in your ability to do things. And most importantly, out of it all, that you admit when you don't know something. As embarrassing as it may sound, pick a better time, pick a better person, pick a trusted person, go Google the darn stuff, use AI, ask the questions. I may not tell you the right truth, but ask anyway. But find an answer. But the story I tell a lot of people is, I made people look at me really strange, which is not really actually that uncommon. I was speaking as a keynote. I was the dude on the poster. Come see us because Loren's talking. And I gave what I thought was a brilliant keynote speech. I don't think I've actually backed that up with people's comments. No, actually, some people said I did well, but they smiled and smirked a little bit. Anyways, I'm on the keynote. And then the next presentation afterwards kept talking about ZMOT. And I'm looking around like, is it only me? But I don't know what the heck is ZMOT. What the hell is ZMOT? And I'm just looking around and everybody else is acting, yes, ZMOT, yes. Finally, at the end, any questions? I raise my hand. I'm always in the front row, dead center kind of thing. Oh, hey, Loren. Yeah, sure. Hi. What's ZMOT? You could have heard the collective, the keynote, the person that we came here for doesn't know what this man is talking about. And why didn't this man be the keynote? Because apparently he knows more than the keynote does. And that's what I felt. And he says, I am so glad you asked that, because I got a feeling that I was talking about something over people's heads that didn't understand. I'm like, well, I'm one of them. And is there a moment of transaction or transition, whatever way you want to translate it? I had so many people come up to me afterwards. Loren, thank God you asked that question. I had no clue what he was talking about, but I was too embarrassed to ask. It is the truth. It is the bane of our roles sometimes that we feel we're in a role that we can't ask a simple question without feeling we'll be judged, criticized, condemned, tried, juried, and sent off to a small little island somewhere by not knowing something what everyone else thinks is basic. The funny part is most of the people that would be the ones wagging a finger at you didn't know it either. And that's what makes it sad. And those people actually call it too, going, wait, before I answer that, why don't you answer it? Because I had that happen once where somebody says, what, you don't know that? They were political peers or, business peers. And one was kind enough to say, Loren, I don't know what that is. And the other one pouncing on the opportunity of thinking, aha, I can get some collateral here that apparently I know more than this other person does by acting like I do and calling them out that they don't know something. So I stumped them and said, boop, before I answer it, since you seem to be very surprised that they didn't know it, that means you do. What's the answer? Well, and they tried to make up something really, and it's like, you don't know it either. So sit the hell back down. That kind of thing. You'd be surprised if you were truthful and candid, how often you can disarm so many conversations by being truthful and candid. Don't know, ask a question. And if you really truly feel it's political dynamite to do that, then go find an answer, whatever means you can trust and go out and look for. Or email me, Loren at Hospitality Digital Marketing. A lot of my conversations and network are from people that we just simply are willing to ask questions and be willing to get answers without a biased opinion of judgment from them. As a matter of fact, the Hospitality Marketing Club that we do is literally based on that. It's like, hey, yeah, I'm a very high level position with a marketing, company, so forth and so on, but I need people that I don't have to preface my entire dialogue to ask a question, that they're already at a level I can ask a question. And they're relieved that there's this peer group that they can talk about stuff without being embarrassed by one of their coworkers. Like, wait a minute, you're in charge of that and you don't know that? No, I do not know the universe. I do not know the whole universe. Sorry, missed that day. Went to school that day. I missed. I did not catch the know the universe day. So be truthful about it. Realize and recognize and look for those gaps with your team. Call them on it. Going, okay, we're talking about XYZ. Can someone please describe to me XYZ? Loren. Call them by name because nobody's going to volunteer because nobody knows the answer. Or if they do, they'll be quick to volunteer. Oh, well, that's such and such, such and such. Good. And if they answered, pick somebody else. So what do you do with that or whatever it is? Make sure before you start getting into a decision model that everybody in that conversation has a base understanding. Doesn't mean they're all going to understand it the same or comprehend it the same or not have different levels of understanding, but at least there's a baseline for everyone to understand from. Then you can make really good decisions. So our topic today, who's training the trainer? The new skill gap at the exec level. I think I have dutifully stood on my soapbox, waved my banners, hit my microphone, told the world what I felt about it. Thank you for those of you watching on TV today, Roku, Google, Amazon, Apple, Samsung, LG, all smart TVs. Look for the Hospitality Channel. You will find us. If you're watching us simulcasted on social, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, X, YouTube, Twitch. If you use your gaming consoles, you can watch us there as well. We thank you very much for all of that. I will answer is to tell you that I'm backing what I say. And I will ask if I don't understand. You can reach me at Loren at hospitalitydigitalmarketing.com. I answer each and every email about both the live show here and also our podcast, which happens after this show. I'll be recording about tools and techniques related to training and information and sources for information and so forth. And a little recap of today's live show as well. You can also audibly send me a message or feedback, a question. Every week I ask a question on hdm.news/talkback. There's a question about the show and the content prior to the show, obviously. And you can give feedback to that or just simply speak your mind. And I appreciate everyone that does that. For everyone that is in different time zones, even though remarkably so many people in so many very remote time zones, I'm sitting wondering, wow, they got to have something to do at 1 o'clock in the morning other than watch me, or listen to me. But we do simulcast this show at 11:30 a.m. Sydney, Australian time for our APAC friends, 11:30 a.m. Wednesday, London, UK time for both our EU and Mideast friends as well. So with that, my name is Loren Gray. I thank you for the privilege of your time, and I look forward to talking to you next week.